You're not helping immigrants. You're using their pain to raise money. This is all just a game to you. You really think that was a protest? Come on. The cameras were already there. The arrest was planned. And you ran to a fundraiser right after. That wasn't real and it was all fake and just a show. Recently during a public policy panel meant to highlight immigration reform, tensions took an unexpected turn when Representative Jasmine Crockett dismantled what many now consider one of the most performative political stunts of the year. Senator Alex Padilla, trying to frame his recent arrest at an immigration protest as a noble act of sacrifice, was left reeling when Crockett didn't just question the motive but pulled back the curtain on what she suggested was a calculated move for attention rather than action. With a piercing stare and a voice sharp enough to cut through spin, she left everyone in the room wondering, was this about justice or just a photo op? When Senator Alex Padilla walked up to the podium, his demeanor was soaked in the air of performative seriousness that many career politicians have mastered. There was a calculated gravitas in his voice as he began to recount his participation in what he described as a critical moment for our democracy, referring to a recent protest against the administration's handling of immigration enforcement. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled, supporters applauded. He spoke with rehearsed empathy about the plight of undocumented immigrants and how he allowed himself to be arrested in front of a federal building to make a statement. But it didn't take long for Jasmine Crockett, sitting just a few feet away, to start shifting uncomfortably in her seat. She knew what was coming, and more importantly, she knew what was missing from Padilla's speech, the truth. By the time Padilla wrapped up his remarks and flashed a humble smile, Crockett was already gripping her microphone, eyes locked. She didn't hesitate. "Senator Padilla," she said firmly, "do you want a medal for getting arrested?" The entire room went dead quiet. No one laughed. No one clapped. Everyone froze, as if hit with a blast of reality. Padilla blinked rapidly, clearly taken aback. He stuttered for a moment, possibly hoping it was a rhetorical question, but Crockett didn't stop. "Is this what advocacy looks like now? Instagram posts and media coverage? Because I've got to say, I'm getting real tired of seeing folks treating injustice like it's a red carpet opportunity." What followed was a takedown so methodical and sharp that it left even seasoned political commentators scrambling to process it. Crockett launched into a blistering critique of Padilla's actions, pointing out that while he was smiling for cameras and proudly tweeting about his arrest, families in his own state were being evicted, ignored, and left without support. She cited specific examples of immigrant shelters in Los Angeles and San Diego that had reached out to Padilla's office for emergency assistance just days before his so-called activist moment, and received no response. "You were busy planning your own publicity stunt while those people were calling your office begging for blankets," she said, voice rising. Padilla's team tried to signal the moderators to intervene, but the moderators had lost control. The room had turned into a courtroom, and Crockett was the prosecutor. "You didn't get arrested because you were fighting for change," she continued. "You got arrested because your poll numbers were slipping, because you needed a headline, because it looks good in a re-election ad. But let me tell you something, pain isn't your PR strategy. It's real, it's raw. And it deserves better than this little show you put on." Crockett didn't need notes. She spoke with the clarity of someone who lived and breathed the issues. She talked about her time working with immigrant communities in Texas, about the long nights spent in overfilled, underfunded detention centers where mothers cried themselves to sleep because their children had been taken. "I didn't call the press when I was there," she said. "I didn't wear a nice suit and smile for the cameras. I went because it mattered. I went because it was the right thing to do. You went because it was convenient." Padilla tried to respond, grasping at his record, the legislation he had co-sponsored, the statements he had made, but Crockett waved him off. "Senator, I don't need to hear about your paperwork," she snapped. "What I need to hear is why you think your photo op means more than the lived experiences of the people you claim to represent. Because you took up space in a movement that wasn't yours to hijack." The room erupted in a mixture of gasps and stunned silence. Some audience members whispered to each other, others sat rigid, eyes wide. Padilla, clearly shaken, muttered something about solidarity and unity. But Crockett was unmoved. She turned to the audience, her voice steady and loud. "Let's get something straight. Protest is not a costume. It's not something you put on when it fits your schedule or your campaign calendar. It's not a backdrop for your social media narrative. And I'm done watching people exploit these moments while pretending to stand with us." She then dropped the bombshell. A memo leaked from Padilla's office that revealed strategic planning around his arrest, including which media outlets would be notified in advance and how the photos would be distributed. "You choreographed your arrest," she said. "You didn't get dragged away, you walked into that cop's arms like it was a dance move." The reaction on social media was immediate. Within minutes, hashtags like #PadillaPerformance and #CrockettCallsIt began trending. Clips of her fiery rebuke circulated across platforms, with pundits and progressives weighing in. Some praised her for finally saying what many had long suspected, that certain elected officials were more interested in optics than outcomes. Others called her disrespectful, accusing her of dividing the party, but even her critics couldn't deny the authenticity of her words. Crockett didn't stop with Padilla. She expanded her critique to the broader Democratic establishment, challenging the entire notion of performative politics. "We can't keep saying we care about marginalized communities while using them as backdrops," she declared. "We can't keep applauding arrests when those arrests are staged. That's not bravery, that's branding." Her voice cracked slightly as she talked about children in cages, about mothers forced to make impossible choices, about fathers deported in the dead of night. "This isn't a game," she said. "These are people's lives, and the moment you start treating their pain like your personal theater, you've lost your right to lead." In the days that followed, the political fallout was intense. Padilla's team scrambled to do damage control, issuing carefully worded statements about his commitment to immigration reform. But the damage had been done. Donors pulled back, endorsements were paused. Grassroots organizers who had once supported him began publicly questioning his intentions. Meanwhile, Crockett's stock rose. Invitations to speak at major events poured in. She appeared on cable news shows, not to gloat, but to keep the focus on what mattered: the actual human beings suffering under broken immigration systems. In an emotional interview with a Latino-focused news outlet, Crockett became teary-eyed as she spoke about her own family's migration history. "My grandfather worked fields so I could speak truth in rooms like that," she said, "so I could call out hypocrisy without fear. I owe it to him and to every single person still waiting for dignity in this country." She talked about how performative activism undermines real progress, how it dilutes the urgency of the crisis, and how people like Padilla, who should know better, end up harming the very causes they claim to support. She also exposed how this trend had become rampant, politicians getting arrested not because they're forced to, but because they see value in it. "Some of these folks are out here treating handcuffs like accessories," she scoffed in one interview. Meanwhile, actual activists, undocumented, vulnerable, brave, are risking everything and getting deported without a single headline. Her voice was unwavering as she demanded accountability not just from Padilla, but from every elected official who had ever prioritized image over impact. "You either stand with the people," she said, "or you stand in front of them, blocking the way." As more people began examining Padilla's actions with a critical eye, new information surfaced about how the protest had been coordinated with various activist groups who were later pushed to the sidelines so that the senator's arrest could become the focal point. "We didn't even know he was coming," said one organizer. "Then suddenly it was all about him." Our voices were drowned out by the click of camera shutters. These revelations only added fuel to Crockett's accusations, painting a picture of a politician willing to hijack a movement for his own benefit. In the weeks that followed, Crockett remained focused on policy. She introduced a new proposal aimed at increasing transparency in how public officials engage with protest movements. Her legislation called for full disclosure of any media coordination during protest participation and prohibited the use of protest footage in political advertising. "You can't monetize justice," she said during a press conference. "You can't brand pain and package it for your next campaign." Her supporters rallied behind her. Young voters, particularly from immigrant backgrounds, saw in Crockett someone who wasn't afraid to shake the system. Activist groups praised her courage and began organizing forums around the theme of authentic activism. Padilla, on the other hand, found himself increasingly isolated. His approval ratings dipped among progressives, and questions about his integrity lingered. The arrest that was supposed to be his moment of moral clarity had instead become a cautionary tale of political theater gone wrong. Jasmine Crockett didn't set out to embarrass Alex Padilla. She set out to tell the truth, and in doing so, she reminded America that justice isn't something you put on for the cameras. It's something you fight for in the shadows, in the hard places, in the moments when no one's watching. She didn't just expose Padilla, she exposed a system addicted to spectacle, hungry for headlines, and desperate for applause, and she did it not with cruelty, but with conviction. Thank you for watching. If you believe in truth over theatrics and leadership that prioritizes people over performance, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more fearless breakdowns and bold voices like Jasmine Crockett's. Let's keep this conversation going, together.